Okay, hi everyone. So we're doing our podcast on women of color in the workplace and their experiences. My name's Lindsay.
I'm Lena.
My name's Joe.
I'm Kiara.
I'm Kiev.
These are our guests. Kiara and Kiev are our guests. So
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Hey y'all, what's going on?
just, having a awesome podcast discussion about women of color in the workplace and their professionalism. So, could you both, just reiterate your names and what you do and your experiences as being what? Oh, in their identities, I'm sorry. In your identities, how you identify in life. That would be great.
All right. My name is Kiev.
Okay.
I'm a black woman, and I guess I have worked at many different places. I have worked at Little Caesars. I've worked at a family video. I was at an internship for the Ypsilanti Community Schools, and I am a resident advisor for Eastern Michigan University.
Awesome.
Me. I'm Kiara. I identify as a black, Mexican, Native American. And I've worked at karate schools, I've worked at restaurants, and I've worked all over the place. But right now I am working as an office manager at Eastern Michigan University.
Awesome. So you guys have on-campus jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Do you enjoy the atmosphere of your on-campus job?
There's good and bad things to everything,
Yeah.
I would have to say. What about you, Kia?
Nope, completely agree. It could be better, but then again, that's everything.
So, but do you want the raw stuff?
Oh, well, let's just
Let's
to
get
the
into
script. Oh, wow, is this podcast heating up already? Please describe any or some of the struggles you've experienced in the workplace because of your identity. Whoever wants a jab at it,
So,
stick the fork in.
some struggles. I guess the biggest struggle with my experience in working places was just to prove to people that I am not incompetent and I'm actually intelligent,
Right.
despite my skin color. Those were, other than that, just the biggest things. And
That was an actual thing.
Yes.
That you had experienced.
Yes.
Incompetency because of color.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I've had
Wow.
people tell me that to my face. I am incompetent. So,
Wow.
yeah.
To your face?
Yes.
Disrespectful. I mean, I've had problems with me, people not hearing the things that I have to say, so I have to, reach out to a fellow white man and be like, hey, can you say this to make everyone's life a little bit better? And they'll be like, yeah, because my supervisor is also a white man. So, brown woman, white man, the hearing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely lacked that white person to be on my side.
The
The
ally.
Unfortunately, yes, I lacked that. So it was definitely a struggle. I was all by myself.
No, yeah. I think being at Eastern, it's a lot easier to align yourself with allies because they kind of just jump out at you sometimes. But I honestly think it wasn't until maybe a few years ago working on this campus in a few different positions that I was able to understand who were actually allies, who are safe
Mm-hmm.
white individuals.
Right.
Who just aren't sometimes. they
Because
just
that's
aren't.
important.
Yeah, no, definitely so. How do you, as a professional and a woman of color, maintain your positionality while speaking on issues about and on the topic relating to, working in the workplace as a woman of color? How do you make sure that you're not getting yourself in trouble, so to speak?
Ooh, so there's this thing, it's my customer service face, and that's the face that doesn't get me in trouble. You know, your voice changes, it goes up 3 octaves, and that's the thing that's like, hey, you know, hi, how's everything going today, you know? And that's not me. So that's kind of what keeps me out of trouble, because I know that the rules are a little different for me. Yay! Because I'm brown. So, you know, for some people, if you say something outspoken or a little bit, you know, kind of jab worthy, I guess, like taking a verbal jab at someone, people are like, oh, ooh, okay, well, I can take it though. But if I say something like that, you know that there's going to be repercussions.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I do that, as well as what I usually do is I have to speak calmly, very slowly and very calmly, because apparently because of my skin color, my appearance, I appear aggressive. So in order to not seem as aggressive and more approachable for some people, I tend to, even when I'm upset, I have to remain calm at all times. So I'm not the angry black woman.
There goes that stereotype.
Yep.
You know, I love the. Let's talk about that. What are some of the stereotypes that you've encountered in the workplace, or not in the workplace, just as being a woman of color, but professionally?
Well,
I guess that's the topic, but you know.
Yes, definitely being the angry black woman.
Yeah.
Lazy,
Oh, wonderful.
not intelligent, just aggressive, and then just like, you know, like a whiner, you know, because like, you know, all people of color just whine about everything all the time. Like, oh, everything is all right. Why do you have anything else to whine about?
They hit you with that race card.
Yep.
It's because everything's
drop
all
that a
white,
lot.
not all
Right.
white.
Exactly. So, oh, what do you mean Black Lives Matter? And I'm like, oh Lord.
Don't all lives matter?
And I'm like, oh God, okay.
Stop.
So,
That's good now.
so yeah, just those stereotypes. But
I've gotten crazy Latina, you know, just being a woman in general, in the workplace, and
Yeah,
something that more of a man is seen to do. I always get the bitch aspect of like, oh, well, she's being a hard ass. You know what I mean? She's, you know, kind of a wench.
Yeah.
So those are like 2 of the really big aspects that I have, and I'm, you know, it's not that great, but.
right.
Yeah, I feel that. In your professional work setting, are you more likely to speak up for someone in an unforeseen like situation? So like maybe another person of color or marginalized identity has something that's happening with them. Are you more likely to speak up about that, or just allow them to have that time and to like respect that that's their business?
Well, we kind of have this Black affinity group for people in housing and res life because we are underrepresented and undertreated. So we kind of all are there for one another. It's an amazing community just to like get those. I mean, don't get me wrong, my group me, it's on mute, but like, you know, just to like go through and read the messages and to like see how people's days are going and like all that love for one another. It's wow, it's inspiring to say the least.
Unfortunately, I have not participated in that group,
yeah.
but when I do see, you know, someone saying something that they shouldn't be saying to another person of a marginalized group, I will wait for a second just to see, like, I'm not just about to automatically jump in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity to jump on this because this is you. They're coming towards you. Yeah. And if I see, okay, you feel some type of way about standing up for yourself and sticking up for yourself, that's when I'm coming in. Yeah. Oh, heck no, because this is not okay, and someone needs to say it. And if you're not going to say it, I will, and then we're going to have a conversation about how you need to step up and say something. Yeah. Because you can't be treated like this.
Yeah.
But you always have to do it in a polite manner.
Of course.
You can never be mad about it. You always have to ask.
Exactly.
But what do you mean by that? It's never, why are you saying this racist thing? Why is this coming out? It has to be, well, what do you mean?
Right. You definitely cannot come at them aggressively and sideways. Like, you have to remain calm, because the second they sense the anger, then all of a sudden, whatever you have to say is just going right over their head. Mm-hmm. They're not listening.
It's defense.
Yes. And so even if you are angry because what they said is just blatantly ignorant, mm-hmm. you just have to just, oh, so do you know what you meant by that? Or do you know what that means?
What are you saying exactly?
Do you know what you mean?
Do you know this is offensive?
Alright, moving on. Have you all been able to overcome unfair treatment that was caused because of your intersectional identities as a woman of color?
Define overcome. It's more like having to just deal with it.
Yeah.
So other than just not necessarily keeping my head down, but just doing what I need to do, but doing it better than everyone else. That's my sense of overcoming.
Yeah.
And if I am put in those situations, not to just like give up. Like, you know, there's going to be uncomfortable situations that I'm going to be in my entire life. And there are going to be people who say some things to me sideways, like my entire life. So instead of just, you know, running out the door, I decide I'm going to stick here. I'm going to try to educate, and I will try to be the best.
Yeah.
Because that's how I overcome.
Do you have like a certain scenario or situation?
Yes, actually. I was working at Family Video, and unfortunately my manager did not really give me that many hours. So I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna work. I didn't even consider myself a worker. I consider myself a volunteer because I only work 3 hours on a Friday. So I was like, I am a volunteer at this place. And she was just like, I would love to give you more hours, but just like, I just don't think you really know what you're doing. Like, are you like incompetent? And, you know, you're gonna have this test coming up, and I really don't think you're gonna like pass. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
wow.
Outright.
Interesting. I was like, all right. So here comes the test. I ended up passing this test. I get the job. And she realized people don't really like her. So people started quitting. And when people started quitting, she was like, wow, I'm like, I need you to start working more. And I was like, okay. And when she did put me on more hours, she was like, wow, you're actually like a good worker. And I was like, yeah.
Is it not
Those
hard,
microaggressions.
okay?
Like, I'm actually not incompetent. You just never gave me an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like-
and that's literally
Yep.
a lot of the situations that, you know, Black women face is very competent, overly competent in a lot of areas.
Yes.
You know, like, unfortunately for a lot of people who don't hire us, but
Well, I have a question though.
Have
So,
an
like, do you think that you work harder and try to do everything better than everyone else because of the microaggressions? Like, do you think that that's what kind of fuels you?
Absolutely. Because I know in this world, as a person who identifies as more than just a Black woman, just whatever other groups that you identify as, I feel you have to work that times as hard. So I have
like
3.
5 times 10. Yeah.
Yes. So I have 3 different identities that I identify with, so I have to work 3 times as harder than people in order to seem like I am the average
Yeah.
person. So I have to be on top. I have to be the best because even my best isn't good enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Because
Yeah.
you just got
Chills.
should be. We're gonna save that for a poetry moment later. Okay, so to you both, what are the power dynamics that exist within your workplace because you are a woman of color?
So where I work, it's predominantly white men who are kind of Republican-y, like they bleed blue, but they're not a crypto type deal.
Yeah.
So and so it's very it's very type A personality that this is the exact way that it has to go, you know, and if you skew from this, it's wrong.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's wrong. So it's really hard to kind of implement and like get your ideas in there when they're just kind of trying to like shoot you down. Like everything you had, like I said, you have to find that white ally so that things will run better.
Right. And for me, in my place of work at this moment, my boss is a very nice, very powerful white woman. And she is an ally for people of color. So I don't feel threatened at all when I express my opinions, my views, and then her boss is a Black man. So I am 100% completely comfortable. Although, and my coworkers are actually, it's a mix of us. Like it's like half African American, half white. So pretty diverse staff. So whenever I feel some type of way, everyone listens. I never feel like I can't say anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like, shoot, my voice actually matters.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing.
Do you guys ever catch yourself in that like counter public of being othered, like to where like you're in a situation with like the rest of your staff, and you know, like everyone's talking, but like maybe you might look at someone else of color and have that like inside type of like look, or have
Like
some similar understanding that like the rest of the group doesn't have, because you guys are marginalized in this way.
I would say 100%. There's there's a couple of, you know, I mean, in different aspects.
Yeah.
Not so much of the fact of like race or being one, but sometimes like being wow, this is really tough. So yes, we give each other like the sideways glance, like the, you know, the side eye with the pursed lips, trying to like, you know,
Right.
that doesn't apply to us. Like, what are they
Right.
trying to say?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, we give it, but for different reasons,
Yeah.
I would say. Not so much like we don't agree with some of the things that are happening. Well, no, it's really that we don't agree with most of the things that are happening.
Yeah. Or
And-
that they might not apply.
And that they don't apply, or they don't, more of that they don't include. Not that they don't apply, that they
I
don't
see.
include. Yeah.
No, yeah, there's definitely been some times where someone will say something and I'm just like, we just like look at each other and just be like, okay, just to make sure I'm not tripping, did they say what I think they just said? So you look at the other person and they look at you and you're like, oh, yes, they did. And then you do the thing where you just like, all right, and you just let them continue to say like whatever they're gonna say. And
Yeah.
but definitely, but it's definitely more with, I find that more with a different thing that I identify with. So
Yeah.
not really more right just because my staff is a little bit more diverse. So there have been times, but it's definitely with a different identity.
Yeah, definitely so. I feel that. Because, you know, you're not like equipped because of your marginalities, because of these societal norms or whatever, that we as Black women have like as labels upon us. How easy is it for you to use the things that you've gained in your experiences in the workplace professionally to align yourself with the powers that be? Like, how is that, like, does that question even make sense? I feel like no. Okay, so like for example, you know, like it's hard to navigate in certain spaces with white men, you know, period,
Right.
because we are Black women, completely opposite or whatever, what have you. So knowing that, how do you use that skill set and that knowledge base to, you know, have someone that's on your side to advocate for you? Like, how do you, like, move in certain scenarios where you know that you're marginalized and you don't have a lot of room?
So where I'm in a situation where I'm the marginalized person
Yeah.
and there's not many others,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're completely othered, right?
You're just 100% othered. Wow. So that happens all the time, and I think because it happens all the time is the reason why I think it's so normal and that I've learned to move this way. So I think it started when I was really little, and I used to go to church, and I would be so shy because I'd be the only first brown person there, period. And so, but I was little, and I didn't want to talk to all these old people. Like, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn how to move with them. You know what I mean? It's not camouflage. It's like, it's an aid almost, you know? So you kind of...
Like a double conscious, is that what you're trying to say?
Kind of, in a way, I don't want to, this sounds so awful to say, but like, you kind of have to speak a little bit, you know, with them to kind of have them accept you a little bit. At least in my experiences, that's what I've had to do. I've had to display that, you know, I can articulate without, you know, because Ebonics is great, and AAVE is A1. I love it. And so that's the way I normally speak is AAVE. And you can't talk that way around, you know, a lot of white people because they won't understand what you're saying in a way.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of speak with them. You have to edit the way you speak to match up with them in a way to make yourself not seem so othered, so that not trusting, but more of like, oh, well, she can hang with us, you know what I mean? They can come
Right.
over here, you know? So that you can infiltrate their circle, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And get what you need to have done.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, my entire life, I have found to try to not be the other. So I'm like, so if everyone is like, oh, bashing on like black people or whatever, you know what? I found myself also being there bashing it too. Like, well, they're not talking about me because that's not me. Ha ha ha. You know, just just trying so hard not to be the other. Like, I will literally do everything that they were doing. I had to speak the way that they were speaking, use the slang that they were using, and just all that stuff. And just because I was always just that one person, and I didn't want to be just like that black person. So I would just have to put my head down, let them say whatever they wanted to say, and just go along with everything.
Yeah.
Just so I wouldn't be so different.
Do you find, like within professional settings, do you ever find the dominant sphere trying to accommodate, like, women of color, like you all in your positions? Do you ever find that anyone above you in higher positions or of a, like, dominant stature, do they ever try to accommodate you like you all try to accommodate them? For example, like you said that you try to articulate better, or you'll try to change up your wording. Like, do they accommodate you in the same ways?
Absolutely not.
Smiles and cries a little bit. No, not at all.
It's just simply like
It's a
our
simple
culture,
no.
right? I mean, because our culture isn't the norm.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest here. So they're not interested in like our ways, and they're not interested in learning. And so
or
when
history or anything like
nothing.
that, even though we know all of theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
We know we've learned it all. That's exactly why we went to school. However, ours is taken away. And look at our other guests coming in here. All right, and it was all taken away though, and they'd be damned if they'd give it back to us to accommodate us a little bit, to make us feel, somewhat at home.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, and so you were always put in a place to where whenever they're like, we're trying to show them something, they're just like, oh, well, I've never heard this before, and then like walk away or like tune out.
Yeah.
Instead of them trying to sit there and learn something new. Like, why we have to sit there and learn everything of theirs. So
Yeah.
no, they don't ever try to accommodate. They're not interested. At least in my experience.
Yeah.
They're not interested at all.
And then if they do, it's cringeworthy.
Yes.
What's up, my homie? Like
Yes.
they don't try.
Extremely offensive.
It's
That was
very
horrible.
yes, it's extremely cringeworthy. It's give you goosebumps.
I'd like to welcome Tori Tennant to our podcast. Hello,
Hi.
Tori. Will you tell us your job position that you have here at Eastern?
Oh, I'm an RA
Okay.
in Pittman Hall.
Okay, cool. And how do you identify as far as your race, ethnicity?
Black.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Black woman of color.
Yes.
Cool. Perfect. You just came to the perfect point in our podcast, which are like, I'm just asking a few questions and whatnot. And this question in particular says, like, what are some of the negative stereotypes you witnessed or experienced in the workplace?
Probably coming off as rude or being bossy for like voicing my opinion.
Yeah.
Even though it's always not like a critical or some form of criticism.
Yeah.
Like any little thing you say, like as far as your opinion, can come off as bossy or too mean.
Yeah.
Or rude.
Aggressive.
Probably. Yeah, aggressive.
Your tone will be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens when you all don't? I feel like this is a thing. Like, so you just let me know if I'm wrong. But what happens? How are you perceived in the workplace if you're not smiling? Like,
Mean.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like
aggressive, mean? Yep.
has anyone ever talked to you all about like having a positive demeanor and smiling?
And how you're
Yes.
supposed to smile because that's what women do. And it's
Definitely.
welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, smile, because if you don't look very approachable.
It's a
Well,
crock
yeah.
of shit. I'm sorry.
No,
But no,
it's fine.
we don't look approachable, yet here you are approaching me about how I don't look approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got it most common because I was a supervisor at Chrysler in the summer
Yeah.
for 2 summers. So, of course, working in the automotive industry is male dominated, white dominated. So, like, white male dominated,
Yeah.
just to paint the picture. And one of the supervisors, he told me, like, it seemed like I was ungrateful and I wasn't thankful to be here.
Yeah.
I guess because I had to be chosen, you know, because I think I was the only black woman
Yeah.
in that position. And, like, first of all, my shift was, like, it started at 4 in the morning every day, and I
Yeah.
worked until 4:30 in the evening.
Yeah.
So it's just like, who is coming into work at 4 in the morning, just happy-go-lucky, cheesing? Like, he was just like, you need to smile. Like, you look like you're ungrateful to be here. And I'm just like, it's 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Who's smiling? Who, like, I'm very grateful to be here, but just because I'm not happy-go-lucky at 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, so yeah.
Do you all think that images in like the media and on television like help progress a positive like view of black women in professional settings?
I think recently it has, just because there hasn't been any representation of black women in professional settings. But now that there are decent representations of women of color, they're always the other to the man or to the higher up. And that's always concerning, seeing, you know, little girls growing up, because you only know what you see. You only know what you know. You know what I mean? And if little girls don't see and they don't know of professional working women of color in high status, then you know what I mean. Like, why would they aspire to do something like that if they don't also see themselves doing it?
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better. But there are some where you're just like, come on, like, it could have been more. Like, it's always, so I will see, like, a powerful black woman, but then it's like, then you got, like, the straight white man, you know, coming in or something, and I'm like, oh, she don't need you. Right, like,
Yeah,
you don't,
or she's
she don't
portrayed
need,
as a whore.
right, it's
Yeah.
like, ugh.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
Yep.
like, just because you like having sex, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they could portray, like, the specific example I'm talking about is being Mary Jane. Like, just because she's trying to date and find her way around, like, they don't have to portray her as just, like, some slut. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's about her business. She's smart, very, like, self-motivated, and I like that about her, but they still find some way to portray her as just a slut. And it's just, I feel like there's different ways they can go about her trying to date and find, like, you know, her one person or her one, because she does want, like, a family and all that stuff, but I think it's a different way they can portray her sex life. And,
Right.
you know.
And that's just like that's Being Mary Jane is the TV show that comes on BET, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think another show that comes on portraying black women in professionalism is Scandal.
Yes, and How to Get Away with Murder.
Yes, absolutely.
Grey's Anatomy.
Like,
Yeah. And so I think that they do. I don't know. What would you all say? Like, how would you feel about Scandal and the portrayal of Olivia Pope?
I can't tell you. I've never watched Scandal,
Okay.
but from the things that I've seen,
Yeah.
it looks as though she's being, like I said, the other to other people, like the lesser almost. You know what I mean? But
Right. I've never seen Scandal either, so I cannot speak on that. But it does seem like she is a powerful woman. I mean, and then what she's having an affair with the president, the straight white man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like. So I mean, I can't really speak on it. So I don't really know, like, if she is being independent or if she just, I don't know. But I mean, by her portrayal, she looks good.
Well, I've seen Scandal. My mom and I are, like, really fond of the show, although they portray her as a homewrecker. And my mom always told me it takes two to tango. So, you know, he wasn't happy in his home. Not saying that it's right, not justifying cheating or anything like that. But they both were interested in one another. You know what I'm saying? So they definitely portray her as a homewrecker. Like, she just came in, swooped in, and just ruined everything. Like, you can't ruin a happy home if that person doesn't let you ruin a happy home.
Right.
But she's definitely about her business, though.
Right.
Like, in the work aspect, yeah.
Do you think that like the portrayal of Olivia Pope and her being such a home wrecking like entity in Scandal, do you think that if she had been white, like, the harshness would be alleviated a bit? Do you think that there would be a difference?
Of course. They would have probably just made it like they probably more so would have blamed his wife, like, oh, well, she wasn't doing what she was supposed to do at home. So, you know, it's her fault. I feel like the tables would have definitely have been turned if the woman was white,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh no, someone was outside.
Oh.
But I mean, How to Get Away with Murder. Annalise Keating is just essentially saving all these kids from going to jail. You know, and it's kind of doing emotional labor for all of these children, not children, but like young adults.
Yeah.
And teaching them how to essentially get away with murder, i.e. the title of the show. So.
Right.
Right. And I can speak on Grey's Anatomy. Miranda Bailey. She is a very powerful black woman in that show. And it helps that the chief of surgery is a black man, and he basically took her, you know, under his wing, and, you know, had a really great relationship. Although, like, they are, like, the only black people in the show, you know, not to spoil it, but she ends up being the chief of surgery, too, like, at one point. And, you know, she struggles a little bit to, for people to take her, like, a little bit more seriously in that position, but she still holds her ground. She's always been a strong black woman. She's never let anyone, like, stray her attention from her job. Like, she is literally, she does it all, you know, has the husband, a child. Like, she is fantastic. And I would also like to keep in mind that with all these shows, that the person who is in charge of it, Shonda Rhimes, strong black woman, right? So this is why, because we have a black woman doing this. It would be a little bit more interesting if I saw, like, a white woman doing this, or a white man doing this.
And when you see when white people are directing things, you see that black people are seen as more of the not the punchline, but kind of there for comic relief, or they're strategically placed
like the
so that
the best friend.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I just had like a off the type of question that came to me when you all were talking, but it was what was my question? See, should have just asked it when I had it.
Yeah.
Dang. Oh, I was gonna say, so in all of our like conversations that we had, the little mini combos that we've had, like a common thread that I don't know if you all picked up on, but it seems like black women have to align themselves with another force in order to have some type of change happen. And I wonder how true do you all like feel that statement is, like how true that holds into like your individual lives in the
110%.
professional.
110%. There's a chain of not command, but there's a chain of black women who teach white women who teach men how things should be and how the system should work, almost in a way. I mean, obviously, it's like an awful game of telephone that gets commonly misconstrued once, you know what I mean? Like, once people of color teach white women. But it's a lot of emotional labor that black women have to do through not only slavery, but also, like, telling these other people that that stuff's not right. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, things aren't right, but we can get rid of that and get rid of that just because it, you know, specifically deals with race, you know.
Right.
Oh, yeah, this would be better for the more like the whole as a community. So that's more of like feminism and whatnot. Whereas like womanism is like, oh, we're here for everybody. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so then these women are teaching men, and then the men are like, oh, this is great too. Yes, I see why this is wrong, but not this because this applies to women. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of, it's just the awful chain.
Everything she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah, definitely. They always, I mean, just because we don't really have that much power, we do need somebody else to be there so other people can listen. Like, you need that straight white man, Christian ally, to start saying the things that we're saying, and then they'll pay attention, because we're powerless, our voices don't matter, we're always complaining. But if somebody else who people are going to listen to is like, hey man, this is wrong, they're like, huh, really? Let me hear more. I'm like, this is what we've been trying to say this entire time. What do you mean?
And that's like, there was a speaker, and he was a white guy. His name's Tim Wise, if y'all want to look him up. And he's like, everything that I'm about to say right here, right now, are not my original thoughts. They're all thoughts from marginalized people and marginalized groups telling me that these things need to be said. Now, no one's going to listen to them if they come up here, so that's why I'm here, is because y'all will listen to exactly what needs to be heard.
Yeah.
And they're aware of this.
Yep. Wow. Well, just wrapping things up with some awkward silence, of course. Any additional information any of you would like to add to any final thoughts to wrap up the podcast? It's been great, bouncy, charismatic, and awkward.
I don't know.
Really the only thing that I would like to add is just that although, being a woman of color, like, yes, we have our struggles, just as a minority group in general, we need to do better with also giving out a helping hand to other people of color. Because we do have a tendency to just kind of, the system kind of does like I'm this minority group, but, this one either has it better, this has it worse. No, it's not a competition. We're all oppressed. It doesn't matter, you're a little bit more oppressed or a little bit less oppressed. Like, no, we're all oppressed.
Olympics.
Yes, this is not the Oppression Olympics. Like, you don't win a gold medal. Like, no. Like, we all need to just do a little bit better of a good job to, realize, wow, we're all in the crapper. Instead of, tearing each other down and keeping the system going, we need to unite ourselves and take it all down.
Yeah.
That is a huge, huge, huge problem that we all have. We all just like to play with those stereotypes and throw it into other people of color's faces, the Mexicans and the Asians, and no. Let's not tear each other down. We need to build each other up and take this down. And we cannot do that if we are all divided.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we also need to remember, as we are progressing our education, that a lot of academia is a form of oppression.
Yes, it is.
Because a lot of black and brown bodies, a lot of people of color are having these same exact experiences, the same ones, but just because they don't have the tools, the tools, exactly, to get that out there, that just because they're having these experiences doesn't, invalidate that, just because they're not able to put it into words like we are. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we should always remember that, and always be able to genuinely listen to fellow people of color and people of color.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for sharing. It's been a wonderful experience having you all on our Women of Color podcast. And until next time, everyone. To our wonderful, just kidding. We're starting over. Okay, welcome to our podcast. We'll be talking about women of color in the workplace, professionalism. My name is Lena Johnson, and we have...
I'm Lindsay.
My name is Joe.
And we have our guest via telephone, Nicole Johnson. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Can you tell us how you identify, your social identities?
I identify as black.
Yep, a black woman, perhaps? Does you sound like you said a woman?
Black woman.
JK. Just lighten up the mood, Okay. And Nicole, can you tell us what you do? What are some things you find yourself taking up all of your time and whatnot?
I have 3 daughters. They're all in their 20s, so I find myself doing a lot of things to try to keep busy. So I have started a YouTube channel, and that takes up a lot of my time.
Oh, okay, awesome. So you you work and you have a YouTube channel that takes up a lot of your time.
Yes,
Okay.
I work part-time.
What do you do part-time as your profession?
I work in the healthcare, so I work in the laundry department of the healthcare system.
Okay, cool.
I work in a nursing home.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so like housekeeping, type of deal. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's
Okay.
called housekeeping and laundry environmental.
Okay, I see. Perfect. All right, so could you just start off by explaining some of your work history and some of the positions that you've held over the course of your lifetime, your lifespan, or your work history throughout your life?
I've been everything from a factory worker. I worked in an office staffing people at other jobs. I've also worked as a secretary, and now I am in the laundry department.
Awesome. And like, have you ever experienced struggles because of your identity in the workplace?
Yes, I most definitely have.
Can you speak to some? Like, do you have like an example of some of the experiences because of your identity that you've had in the workplace professionally?
Yes, when I was working at the staffing agency, me and one of my white counterparts got hired around the same time. She actually got hired 3 months before I did. And she got a raise, and I did not. And I thought, okay, 3 months later, I know I'm going to get a raise. She got $1 raise. I knew nothing about it until she accidentally let it slip in front of me that she got $1 raise. And then she said, "Ooh, I'm sorry, they're not giving you a raise, so can you please not say anything?"
Mm.
And I later found out from her that they were not giving me a raise because of my color, because of who I was. And I was so outraged because I was actually helping her, and that's how she got her raise. She always was asking questions.
Huh.
And so I let her know that she was now on her own with her $1 raise. And I went to the uppers and I let them know that I knew she had a raise and when would I be getting a raise. And they said they will see what they can do. And I let them know that she was coming to me, had lots of questions. She really didn't know her job, and she was there longer than me. So I no longer would be helping her. So maybe she needed more training for her $1.
Cute. Give her that cute little boot. Oh man. So like wow, that's really that do you find yourself in situations like that often, or do you know of people who have those situations happen to them, like the occurrence of those situations where white counterparts are benefiting from their black counterparts in a work setting and professional settings? Do you find that to be true in your experience?
Yes, I'm sure that it's true. The only difference is now they're trying to keep it more of a secret, but because her and I were friends, she accidentally let it slip. It was very hard for her to keep it from me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that it is happening because even in the place where I work now, girls are starting off and they let us know you can be fired for talking about how much you make an hour.
Mm.
That right there is not fair because girls start, black and white will start at the same time, and one is making more than the other.
Ah.
But I can't go and say, hey, you know, such and such is making 40 cents more than you an hour.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who will be fired.
Yeah.
But it happens. It happens right now, even at a different job, different department.
Speaking of you working in a predominantly female-like setting, like with varying like ages and maybe like ethnicities, do you find that your supervisor sometimes will take the favor of some of you more than others of you in your work setting?
Yes, I have noticed that, and I've even went to my boss and kind of called him out on it. And so now I have noticed that he bears more gifts to us of color when it's our day to work. We get a little more gifts. He'll come in with candy in his hand trying to like make peace, and I accept no gifts.
Okay.
Just to remind him that I know what's going on.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And is your, like, do you find that your supervisor is someone who you can align yourself with as an ally for when you need to speak up, or does he kind of just, is he just there kind of just to do a job and to kind of keep it moving? Or does he have favorites?
He does have favorites, and I'm very boisterous, so I have went in his office and let him know. As long as it does not affect me and my work, I don't care. But if I do happen to have a problem, I will let him know that I will go above his head.
Well, that seems pretty outright and, you know, clear. It's very transparent. Have you, like, can you name or do you have, like, an example of a time in a professional setting or in the workplace where you've had to overcome unfair treatment because of you identifying as a black female woman? Like, besides the one that you, like, obviously gave us, you know, to begin with, but, like, another instance to where, you know, you were perceived in a different, like, light than you were trying to portray.
Yes, me and one of my white counterparts were having the same problem. On one day, she went to the boss and let him know, and I told her I was going to go and let him know about the same problem. Well, when I went into his office, because of the way that I spoke and using my hands and trying not to move my neck, he took that as being more defensive. And I actually said the exact same thing as her because we almost kind of rehearsed it because we wanted to get our point across.
Yeah.
So one day she went in, and the very next day when I was at work, I went in, and he kind of took it as me being very defensive about the situation. So I went out and got her because she was at work that day, and we both went back in. We were saying the exact same thing. I decided to stop talking and let her talk, and she was saying the exact same thing that I was saying with no hand movements. And he told her, okay, now I think I understand what Nicole was trying to say.
And so you had to align yourself with her in order to get your point across.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though I was saying the exact same thing that she was, she took it as me being defensive because of my hand gestures and movements, body movements.
Do you find in, like, with you being a woman of color in your positionality, do you find that you will speak up more in the face of, like, adversity when it comes to, you know, like, your womanhood or, you know, you being like a woman of color, like you being black? Do you think that you will speak up more in those scenarios, or do you feel like you already know what the outcome is going to be, so you just take a stance and bite your tongue on certain, you know, occasions or scenarios that you're put in?
I always try to speak up for what I believe is morally right, and I hope that if there is another person of color, that they will step up with me if they're feeling the same way, or even my white counterparts, if they are feeling the same way, then I would hope that they would back me up. Sometimes I find that I am by myself, and then later on people will say, I felt the same way, but if you don't speak up, then you probably will never speak up.
Yeah.
Don't speak up later. So I have found that to be true, but I always try to speak up for what I feel is morally right in the workplace.
Yeah. Do you find yourself, because you said that there are a few other women that work with you, and that they're also women of color, do you find yourself, like, aligning yourself with them and having, you know, like, and, like, the allyship of having, you know, black women to back you up in certain situations where it's predominantly white women that you work with?
Yes, most definitely, because they understand the struggle of who I am and what I stand for. And so I find that there is unity in numbers. So a lot of times I know I can go and talk to them, and they also know they can come and talk to me. And if we have a problem, a lot of times we will try and go to him together, go to our boss together.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you feel like so outnumbered in your work setting because you're in a predominantly white space, and, like, what that feels like?
Yes. When I worked at the staffing agency, we were staffing people to some high companies, and the men that ran these companies would go out and get luxury cars and stuff like that, and take our company out to lunch for staffing them with, their new employees and stuff. And from time to time, we would be told, we're having a meeting, and it's a very important meeting. There'll be lots of the owners of the companies there for us to wear low cleavage shirts and high skirts, so skirts above our knees. I was not down for that from the beginning. And in the building that we staffed out of, there was only one other woman of color, and I want to say there were 14 white people.
Yeah.
So they all were down with this. Yes, because it increased our numbers.
Right.
They would pick us over some other company. And I just was not down with it. So the day of, when we're supposed to wear these short skirts and cleavage out, I wore my Little House on the Prairie dress down to my ankles. And they had me stay in the office while they all went to lunch. And I manned the phones in the office because I basically was not on board.
You were
with
definitely
what they
taking a
asked.
stance that day. Like, you're fine. You're definitely taking a stance that day. Yeah.
Yes. But what it did was the other black person in the office who did not want to do it, but she was already complying with what they asked.
Mm-hmm.
She let me know that, she wishes she would have. And I said, well, the next time they ask us to do this, you don't do it either. Yeah, well, we both ended up quitting our jobs around the same time.
Yeah.
Because to me, it just morally was not right. I am not going to wear a short skirt to help out business. And if I don't wear short skirts.
You weren't going to be a part of the sex cells scandal.
No, I was not. No, I was not going to do it. That felt to me like prostitution. I don't know what you're going to ask me to do next, but I'm not down with step one.
Yeah, feel that. Do you think, speaking of like prostitution and, just normalizing certain things that you would probably see in the media, like, do you think that the images of, women of color and black women, especially in the media and on television and social media, like in advertisements, do you think that they're progressing women of color, especially like women of color in like professional, scenarios and settings? Do you feel like from years past that there is a better representation of a professional black woman in the media? Because you think about it, you have quite a bit of like working history to be able to see the trends over time and what is portrayed on television and in film and in the like media and on the internet. And so what do you think?
I would like to say that it is, but I have found that even like watching the news,
Mm-hmm.
it seems as though whenever someone is reporting something in a neighborhood, they find the nappiest haired, toothless person that sounds ignorant talking about something when they don't have to do that. And that bugs me. It really hurts my feeling, and it bugs me because they do not have to put that on the air, but they do.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's who they're seeking out to get an interview from.
Yeah. And it seems like maybe that they're trying to put it out there to portray and perpetuate something like that, like black people, like all black people must look like this anytime that they're just on the street, trying to enjoy the day.
To me, it seems like if someone is shot, if a black man is shot, and let's say a white man shot him, then why does his arrest record have to come into play?
Mm-hmm.
If that had nothing to do with him being shot.
Yeah.
He was not robbing a bank. why does that have to come into play?
Yeah.
Because you want to demean who he was to make his death, we got rid of another
Yeah.
no good whoever.
Yeah. I feel that. Well, Nicole, we are honestly, we're wrapping it all up and we're at the end of the road here. Do you have any additional information you would like to add for our podcast regarding any struggles or nuances that you face as a woman of color in the workplace?
No, I really hope that in years to come that this issue is not, we have progressed some.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. It would just be so much more of a progression to have our voices heard in the spaces where they're not being, where we're not being, we don't have any space, or we're not being represented. So, yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Nicole. We appreciate you commenting and talking with us on our podcast today and our Women of Color and Professionalism in the Workplace. We hope you have a great day. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.